one chat at a time.
Hi guys, and welcome to Series 2, Episode 1 of Keeping the Arts Alive One Chat at a Time.
Today we have the wonderful James Francies talking all things piano.
So please like, comment and share with your friends and family if you enjoy.
Hi James,
Hi.
Thanks for coming on.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
No worries, how are you?
I'm good. I'm here in New York. My album just came out, Purest Form, so everything's surrounded around that, so pretty excited.
Love that. So let's go back to the beginning. What would you say is your earliest memory of playing the piano?
My earliest memory, that's a great question. My earliest memory, I started playing around when I was 3, I guess. I just always wanted to, people wanted me to sing, but I always wanted to play piano, so I would always kind of gravitate towards that. So when I was 5, I started taking formal lessons like classical music and, I played in church as well. So from there on, everything kind of just started branching out because my parents were always playing cool music in the house and,
Love that.
But I would say 3 is my earliest memory. I remember.
So young, isn't it?
It
Great.
is, so
Yeah.
tiny. So you've had an incredible music education. You went to the High School for Performing and Visual Arts.
Yeah.
We would love to know a bit more about your time there because there's so many prestigious artists that went in there, isn't there?
Definitely, they always say there's something in the water there, but, I honestly think it's just the environment you're placed in at that school and the amount of freedom you're given. So
Okay.
it's going to that high school was kind of like going to college.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right? You got a lot of freedom, and there was a requirement you had at least 4 hours of music a day.
Wow.
Oh, okay.
So from 14 to whatever, 17 or 18, you had every day 4 hours of music, whether it was playing, whether it was studying orchestration or music theory, but you're dealing with 4 hours of music every day, whether you want to or not.
Wow,
Wow.
that's brilliant. That's excellent training, isn't it?
I mean, it sets you right on the right path, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so once me and my friends, we got to college and everything, we're like, wait a minute, we've already been doing this,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So then you
Yeah.
did go on and you gained a full scholarship to the School of Jazz at the New School in New York
Yeah.
City. While you were there, you built up a relationship with Jeff TAIN Watts and also had your first international tour with Chris Dave and the Drumheads. How was this for you? I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, well, I'll go back to TAIN. I met Jeff when he came to Houston one time. There's this program called The Camera of Houston, which is this big performing arts center where they bring in a bunch of artists like throughout their whole season. So one time I saw TAIN there and I met him. I don't even think he remembers, but then I met him again when I was 18 in New York, and I played for the Jazz Gallery, some type of party or
Okay.
Right.
some award ceremony thing, and they were presenting Roy Hargrove with this award. So they asked me to be part of the tribute band because
Wow.
Oh, wow.
somebody couldn't make it, or there was something. I think I was like 18, and I think TAIN was going to play a couple of tunes there with his band, and I was playing part of this legacy band, a tribute to Roy. So then we kind of reconnected. Then he's like, hey, let's play. And so from there on, I kind of started working in his band, and even till this day, I still will play here and there. He'll come play with me sometimes. So it's he's like a guru, So
I mean, going on from that, because his independence as a musician is insane. And yours as well. How did you gain so much independence when you're playing?
I don't know. I mean, coming up at HSPVA, a lot of times there was no bass player. A lot of the time.
Right.
So Jeremy and I, my drummer, that I play with a bunch, and a bunch of different other drummers I would play with. They would we'd be like, hey, let's play. But I'm sure even where you guys went to school, there's probably the bass players. There's never a bass player around. Bass players are always the hardest person to lock down, even if you play it. So I bought this keyboard. I was like, hey, I'll just play bass on here, and pretty soon it kind of became second nature. So even when I started working with Chris Potter and his bassless trio, or with Pat Metheny, there's no bass. So for me, coming from that background of saying, oh, there's no bass player, no problem, or even me and Jeremy, we played duo shows. But yeah, it's fine. There's so-and-so didn't show up today, so we're just going to play. So
Amazing.
independence, I guess, that came from that, and also playing Bach and all the usual suspects of that repertoire. So
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's evolved so much from that. I think some people don't realise how many parallels there are between the two worlds in that way.
yeah, it's all just muscle memory in a way, and music is music. Everybody puts genres on everything, but there's only 12 notes and there's only so many combinations. So it's just all about the feeling and the, the intention behind something, I think.
100%. Couldn't agree more.
So, looking at your your first international tour with Chris Dave and the Drumheads, so what was that like?
Yeah, he had called me and said, hey, can you go on tour with Drumheads? And that was during the time where he was playing everywhere. It was just, it's like playing with like a rock band or something,
Yeah.
So I said, yeah, of course I can do it. And at the time I was at the new school, so I told them, like, hey, I'm going to be gone for 3 weeks. And they were like, okay, as long as you can. I mean, I talked about my instructors. I was like, hey, this is cool. And they made it work. But playing with Chris, I mean, it's almost like, it's funny, I make the combination of between him and TAIN because, they both came through Kitty Garrett's band. So, and Chris is like a huge fan of TAIN. So, hearing some of that language that he's taken and kind of inverted and put it in his own style and his own genre of how he plays, it's interesting because, TAIN is usually playing like straight ahead stuff and playing stuff in odd time signatures.
Yeah.
Chris is kind of almost doing the same thing, but there's like a different little twist on it because he'll do it over like a Busta Rhymes beat or something, or something where it's like, oh wow. But for me, having played with both, it's just cool to see the relationship,
So cool. It must be crazy for you to play with these people that I suppose you grew up listening to. Now they're your pals, like crazy.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, especially with Pat, because Pat's one of those people, like, he's so revered and just everywhere. So it's
amazing.
Sharing sharing a bus with him. It's like, oh yeah, that's the guy you used to listen to in high school.
Yeah.
It's mad though.
No, it's great.
I suppose if you're working hard and you keep going and you meet people along the way, it just kind of snowballs it, doesn't it?
It does. There's definitely some luck involved. I mean, I can't say it's like, oh, I'm only doing this because I'm so skilled. Just right place, right time, some of that in there. So
So going on from that, who would you say have been some of your biggest musical influences, and how have they shaped your playing?
Biggest musical influences? You mean me listening or me just working with people?
Go with a bit of both. We'll start with listening.
Listening, I mean, I've always listened to, the greats and everything. So Oscar Peterson and Art Tatum, they were always kind of the the mecca of piano playing, of course. Then Coltrane, of course. Those people, Freddie Hubbard. I love trumpet players, guitar players, Alan Holdsworth. I love so many different influences. Sometimes it's not even music for me. Like, I love stand-up comedy, so I love comedians. I love watching how they put together sets and how they deliver stuff. So
that's brilliant. So your own band, Kinetic, how did that all come about?
We're all from Houston. It's me, Jeremy Dunn on drums, Bernice Travis on bass, and Mike Moran on guitar.
Cool.
So I originally kind of put that together once I first got to New York, where we kind of play around the city and, we'd have gigs here and there. But a lot of times I just go out trio nowadays, where it's just me, Jeremy, and Bernice, because, we've played together so much, and also sometimes people are not available. Mike's busy too. So a lot of times, like, we're all best friends anyway, so we all play together in different configurations, whatever you want to call it. But, we have been playing together so long, even before getting to New York. Like, Bernice played at my senior recital in high school. Like, he was playing
how nice.
audition tapes, So once we got to New York, he's like, oh yeah, we've already been doing this. So when it was time to record and do shows, it was like, oh, we don't need to get together a repertoire. We already have all this music we've been playing and writing since high school,
Oh, what a dream. That's so nice. If we were going to look at your, I don't know, what you listen to music on your phone or whatever, what would we see? What's the last thing you've listened to?
Oh my gosh, I mean, let me look. Let me see.
Here we go.
What have I been listening to? This band Crumb. It's like there's this indie band Crumb.
Ooh.
Roberta Flack.
Lovely.
Michael Franks. Do you guys know who that is?
No, I don't actually.
Yeah, he's like kind of like a smooth jazz, quiet storm singer, but I've always loved his voice since I was like 5. So.
Oh, great.
Oh, cute. I'll have to check that out.
The way he sings is just, it's so like iconic, just the way his voice sounds. So for me, like, my parents, they were always playing like Earth, Wind and Fire and
oh yeah. Same.
Like stuff from the 70s. Like, so for me, it was like, it doesn't have to necessarily be this or that. And like, my dad he always plays jazz records. So
cool.
For me, it was just all just great melodies, great harmony, great movement. So for me, that's what I'm all about. Whatever genre you want to call it, as long as it has those those three things, like, you know, great melodies, great stories, and great harmonies. For me, it's like
Then it
you
works.
call it whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's move on to your debut album, Flight.
Sure, sure.
What was your inspiration for this?
Sure, Flight. I mean, even the title was just kind of like the beginning of something. You know, kind of like, okay, we're like I think about the Wright brothers, the people that figured out how to fly. You know, people call them crazy, but you know they were like, oh, this isn't gonna work. You're never gonna get somebody in an airplane and fly. But they kind of just defied the odds and just they believed in what their vision was. So for me, that was kind of what this was too, because you know, a lot of debut albums, especially for instrumentalists, you know, there's so many preconceived ideas of what something should sound like. It's almost like, oh, you have to do all these checklists, like, okay, you did that, and that. But for me, it was like, you know, I'm kind of tired of hearing the same things on debut albums. So I was like, you know, I'm just gonna play the music that I've been playing, and you know, I got my best friends together like I always do, and we just made an album, and whatever people wanted to call it, I was like, you know, call it whatever you want, put it in whatever genre or category. I'm just gonna show the different sides of me, like who I truly am.
Yeah, that's really cool. And you worked with Derek Hodge on that, didn't you, as well?
Yeah, Derek came in. He was kind of keep everything together. Like he helped co-produce and everything. And I've known Derek since I was like 15 or something.
Oh, wow, a long time.
Yeah.
So how did you guys meet?
So me and him met through Robert Glasper. Me and Robert Glasper are super, super close. So I met him when I was like 14, and he's always looked out for me. And, you know, whenever he would come to Houston, we always hang out. And, you know, he's always just kind of been that big brother kind of figure, just looking out. He's like, yeah, you know, be careful with this. Like,
that's not a bad big brother to have, is it, really?
Yeah, he's always looked out, you know, and
yeah.
helped with so many opportunities, put me on it to different projects and everything. So I met Derek through him, and because Robert was always introducing me to people, and he still does too. But we've always kept the connection there. So when it was time to do an album, I thought about, you know, who could be a good producer, because, you know, for a first record, you kind of need somebody to help things, and because it can be overwhelming at times, you know, when you're trying to deal with the recording aspect of it, then like how something sounds, all the music, all the different personalities in the room.
Yeah.
And he has that energy to where it's like very grounded, you know.
Nice. Yeah.
So having him there was great.
Yeah. Oh, and you did acoustic and electronic, didn't you, on that?
Yeah, a lot of acoustic stuff, a lot of electronic stuff, I love producing stuff and getting into sounds and soundscapes and all that stuff. So yeah, that was kind of, I was trying to introduce people to that, on at least with my thing. So yeah, kind of gave it like a hybrid type of blend, you know.
Love that. If you could pick anyone to perform with that you haven't already done so.
I don't know. I mean, anybody wants to work with me and I want to work equally as work with them. Those are people I want to work with.
I think that's such a great outlook. Yeah.
So congratulations on your new album, Purest Form,
Wonderful.
and again with Blue Note Records. Tell us a little bit about this project and the sound world.
Sure. Purest Form, you know, I made it kind of basically 2019 into like the beginning of January 2021.
Okay,
cool.
Great.
You know, so all last year we were always just at home, stuck at home, and I had already had a lot of music that I was working on towards the end of 2019. So the top of 2020, I was in LA for the first kind of quarter, right before everything kind of started getting weird.
Yeah.
And I was with Childish Gambino for that month. We did his last album together.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so, you know, being locked in the studio for like a month and a half, you kind of try to get your mind away from like what you're doing the whole day. So a lot of the basis of the album kind of started there, where I'd be kind of working on stuff and had my voice memos, recording. So then there's like a couple songs in there where they started in LA, then I kind of finished in New York. Then there's also a couple songs where I started when I was on tour with Pat Metheny, where I'd always get to the venues early, just get to the venues earlier than Pat, because he gets there super early. But I would get there just to kind of warm up, and I'd have these different ideas. And I always keep my phone with me, like for voice memos. That's
nice.
Yeah, you know, and you just mark them. So I remember we were gone like most of 2019. So I would just mark things, and before I knew it, I had all these cool little ideas. Then once 2020 kind of started happening, where it was like, okay, nobody's going anywhere,
Yeah, slowing down.
and I want to record an album, like get everybody in the studio at some point. So
Yeah.
I had my whole setup, and I don't know, I started making demos. I was so obsessively like recording stuff. It was funny with this album. I kind of knew exactly what I wanted for each song. I had the song order down before I even recorded, so it was kind of a different way of recording where going in, I knew the order I wanted to record everything in, and
Yeah.
all because we had all this time to sit and just be by ourselves. You know,
Yeah.
Exactly.
at
Time
the
to
end
play.
of it. So
Yeah, so that's your kind of inspiration. It kind of naturally evolved then, I suppose, the album.
well, yeah, I mean, it was just having such like a firm template of what I wanted. That was kind of a cool moment, and just having the time to really mix it. And you know, me, and my engineer Jason, we spent like 3 months just like going back and forth, me and him in person, just kind of tweaking stuff, sitting with stuff, and yeah, it just kind of came. It came together, and it was exactly what I was hearing. Versus like if you're on tour and you're doing all this stuff, you're like, oh, I only have this week to mix. I only have this week to record. You know, so if there were things where I wanted to fix or like overdubs I wanted to add to do production and everything, you know, I had the time to really do what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Love
Yeah.
that. It's
Yeah.
great. Would you say, in terms of your practice, how do you have a kind of a routine with your practice?
For me, I spend most of my time, you know, there's like a certain standard I try to hold myself to at all times. So when it comes to technique, you know, I'll spend a certain amount of time on, you know, repertoire, you know, just fundamentals, really, just being really, people think there's a secret to getting really good at something, but it's really just repetition and fundamentals and, you know, really just, it's not cutting corners.
Yeah.
Yes.
So then from there, like, you know, you get creative, you start making up your own exercises, you know, tailoring them to yourself, you know, how you play. And, you know, we all know what our deficiencies are. It's just if we want to address them is the problem.
Yes.
Then, yeah, between that and like writing, I mean, I write a bunch, write for other people. And before that, you have been through a whole day if you spend half the time working on repertoire and, you know, technique and everything, the other half writing. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's a full day's work just even thinking about it.
What would you say the advice you would give to your younger self or someone just starting out?
Just be patient. It will come. You know, just
Yeah.
don't be too desperate. Like if you put in the work, it will show up, and sometimes it shows up sooner than you think. But it'll come. Like whatever you're working for is. There's always that saying, what you're looking for is also looking for you.
Yes.
Oh,
Love that.
I'd like
Yeah,
that
really
one.
like that.
Yeah, so like if you're seeking like some type of greatness or like you know what you want to do, you know the more work you put in, the closer you get to it.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
Can you think of a funniest moment, either performing or in rehearsals, like a joke story?
Oh my gosh! See, that's another one of those questions where it's like.
Too many.
I don't know, I just have a weird sense of humor. So what's funny to me is like, wow, why does he think that's funny? I think I've told this story before in an interview, but there was one time we were playing with Chris's trio down in, what's it called? Reunion Island. It's like next to Mauritius, right off the coast of Madagascar. It's like
Lovely.
this tiny little island, beautiful, you know, just beaches, all of it, incredible. So we were there for 3 days, I guess. I mean, this is not funny, but it's like a unforgettable story, right?
Yeah.
So we played, and they gave us 2 days off there because it's such a long flight. You have to fly to Paris first from New York, then you have to fly Paris to basically Madagascar, I guess,
Wow. Okay. Long
and
journey.
transfer Madagascar to Reunion Island. So it's like basically like 20 hours of traveling at least, you know.
Long.
So we did that, you know, we fly there, have the day off, then I think there's another day off, then we play, then the next day we're leaving. So each day we're going to the beach and everything. Chris is snorkeling. Chris loves to snorkel. Well, at least he was doing it a lot when we were there. There's like a volcano there. We drove up to the volcano. It's just, everything's great. You know, we got to see all this amazing stuff. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah. No, honestly.
So then, like, we went swimming. Usually I don't swim in, like, open water like that to where it's just, like, you never know what you're going to
Yeah.
hurt
Yeah.
yourself. But it's like the first day I was like, cool, I'll do it. And, you know, the water was so clear, it almost looked like there was no water. It was like
Oh.
incredible.
Amazing.
So then the day we were leaving, our flight wasn't until like maybe 5 o'clock or something. So Chris was like, hey, you guys want to go to the beach again right before we go back? So I was like, yeah, sure, why not? So of course we go out to the water. The tide's a little bit stronger than usual.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh, here we go.
So I get in, and of course, right before our flight, I slice my foot open.
No.
Yes, it's like blood is gushing out, and of course, they had said previously there was like sharks in the water. And
Oh
everything.
no.
Stop.
Oh no.
And I think we had like a couple of drinks too. You know, we're at the beach just hanging. It's like, yeah, you know, before we get on this flight, let's just chill, whatever. So,
Yeah.
of course, you know, when you drink a little bit, you know, your blood is like a little bit thinner. So
Yeah.
here blood's just shooting out of my foot, and you know, they speak French there, so nobody's really understanding. So like, hey,
My
I
foot.
go to the lifeguards. I'm like, hey, my foot is bleeding, and our tour manager, he's like, yeah, he was fine. You know, you'll be okay. So the what's it called? The lifeguard. They look at my foot. It's like, okay, well, we'll wrap it up. But it's like we have to catch a flight. So I get on the flight. My foot's bleeding, and I have to walk through Charles de Gaulle Airport, and it's just like,
Oh no.
yeah, but you know, you're just so exhausted. You're just like, it's fine. So then later, I get back home in New York, and for some reason, I just decided to go to the emergency room. I was like, I should probably get this looked at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then I get there, they're like, hey, I don't know why nobody did this, but you need stitches.
Oh.
But since it's been past 24 hours, you can't give somebody stitches, I guess the way something.
Oh,
No way.
didn't know that.
Yeah, so they're like, yeah, you need a tetanus shot. Like, you have to do all this stuff and all these tests.
Oh my. That is
So-
not what you want to hear, is
No.
it?
Not what you want to hear, but, you know, nothing happened, but it was just like this whole experience of just, on the last day, something just happens to go.
Yes, typical.
It's like, no, let's go to the airport. It's like, no, let's go to the beach. Let's enjoy the beach one more time.
Well, you're never going to forget that one, that's for
No.
sure.
Thanks so much, James, for coming and
Of
chatting.
course.
It's
Of
been
course. Thank you guys.
really
Thank
nice to
you.
meet you.
Yeah, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your lockdown, and congratulations with the album again.
Yeah.
So cool.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you guys soon, yeah?
Yeah,
Thank
thanks
you.
a lot.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good.